The year is 1988. Live Aid is just a few months away, and Queen are gearing up to shock the world. On July, before a crowd of over 72,000 people at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia, Freddie Mercury, the band's iconic lead singer, would deliver a performance that Rolling Stone magazine would later call one of the 100 greatest moments in rock history. But backstage, a darkness was growing that no amount of adulation could touch. Freddie had recently been diagnosed with HIV, but he kept it secret, carrying the weight of the news alone. His bandmates didn't know. Neither did his close friends or the millions of adoring fans watching him light up the stage. The mask of confidence remained, but beneath it, Freddie was silently battling not just a physical illness, but a fear that was crippling him. In his diary, he wrote about feeling an inexcusable hollowness, a stark contrast to the joy he brought to so many. Yet he pushed on, refusing to let the world see his struggle. Little did he know that this battle would soon take a toll on his band and the future of one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Fast forward 2 years to the night of February 18, 1990. History was about to unfold in a way no one could truly grasp at the time. Under the bright lights of London's Dominion Theatre, Queen was about to be honored for 2 decades of music that had electrified the world. The audience expected Freddie Mercury, the larger-than-life frontman who once commanded stadiums of thousands, to take the spotlight with his usual fire and charm. Instead, what they witnessed was something far quieter, more fragile, and infinitely more haunting. Freddie walked on stage, dignified but noticeably thinner, and said almost nothing. And with just 3 soft words, "Thank you. Good night," he unknowingly delivered his final farewell. That evening was supposed to be a celebration. Queen was being awarded the prize for outstanding contribution to British music, a recognition long overdue. Terry Ellis, president of the BPI, introduced them with warmth and admiration. For men, all college graduates celebrating 20 years together, they've never truly been recognized for their extraordinary accomplishments. Tonight, we're going to fix that. The crowd roared as the band walked out. Freddie appeared first, his arm lifting in a familiar wave, followed by Roger Taylor, John Deacon, and Brian May, dressed sharply in a sky blue suit, striped tie, and crisp white scarf. Freddie looked elegant, almost regal. But for those who knew him best, tour fans paying close attention, his thinner frame, paler complexion, and missing mustache were impossible to ignore. Something was different, even if no one dared to say it aloud. When the moment came to speak, Freddie stepped back. Brian May took the microphone, thanking the industry, their fans, and even cracking a joke about the British oil industry and recycled vinyl records. Laughter filled the room. Freddie, however, remained silent, clutching the award, his presence both commanding and strangely subdued. As the applause faded and the band prepared to leave, Freddie hesitated. Just for a moment, he leaned toward the microphone. With a faint smile, his voice, once thunderous enough to shake stadiums, was now barely more than a whisper. "Thank you, good night." 3 words, nothing more. But in that instant, they carried a weight far greater than anyone realized. It was the last time the world would hear him speak in public. By then, Freddie had already been living with an AIDS diagnosis for nearly 3 years, though he kept it fiercely private. Even his closest friends and bandmates were left in the dark for a long time. Brian May later admitted, "We didn't really know how bad it was. We never spoke about it because Freddie didn't want to. It was like an unwritten law." The rumors, though, were relentless. Tabloids speculated constantly about Freddie's health, pointing to the band SAN's unusual decision not to tour after the release of their 1989 album, The Miracle. Freddie gave little away, only saying he wasn't fit to tour. Gradually, Brian recalled, it became obvious what the problem was, or at least pretty obvious. But we didn't know for sure. What no one knew for certain was that Freddie was protecting his band, his family, and himself. He refused to let illness define him, pouring what strength he had left into the music, instead of into explanations. Silence became his armor. That February night at the BRIT Awards was meant to highlight 2 decades of triumphs. It should have been remembered for the joy of Queen's legacy songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You, radio anthems that had already secured their place in music history. Instead, the night became a different kind of milestone, a farewell, though unspoken, from the band's unforgettable frontman. It was striking to see Freddie this way, not flamboyant, not strutting in leather or commanding the stage with his trademark bravado, but standing quietly, dignified. For an artist who once lived to perform, this silence said more than any show could. It was as if Freddie had chosen to leave the stage on his own terms, with grace, and with just enough of a smile to reassure those who loved him. Only 21 months later, on November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury was gone. He was just 45 years old. The announcement shocked the world, even though the rumors had long been there. And yet, when fans looked back, that quiet moment at the BRIT Awards felt like a curtain slowly falling. A moment when Freddie let go, offering a final bow, not with fireworks and spectacle, but with humility. Those 3 words, thank you, good night, have since carried a weight no one could have imagined at the time. They became the punctuation mark at the end of an extraordinary life. Freddie Mercury, the man who gave us some of the greatest performances in rock history, left the stage quietly, with dignity. And perhaps that was his final gift, reminding us that behind the legend there was always a man who cared deeply, lived fully, and loved music more than anything else. Today, looking back at that night, it's hard to separate the memory of Freddie Mercury from the awards show. That might have been his last public goodbye. How did he manage to keep such a huge part of his life hidden from the world? To understand this, we need to look at the man behind the music, a man who valued privacy and control over his narrative intensely. Although he was comfortable being larger than life on stage, away from the spotlights, Freddie was fiercely private, choosing to shield those close to him from the intense media scrutiny that often tore down artists. This drive for privacy intensified when he was diagnosed with AIDS, in an era when the disease was shrouded in fear, prejudice, and misinformation. Freddie chose to protect himself and his loved ones from the storm of speculation that would have surely followed a public announcement. Instead, he channeled his energy into his work, pouring everything he had into creating the critically acclaimed album, The Miracle. It was a testament to his dedication that even as he battled both illness and isolation, he produced some of his finest work. But the secret he was keeping was a heavy burden. In his diary entries, Freddie expressed feelings of loneliness and despair, contrasting sharply with the joy he brought to millions through his music. His inner turmoil was a stark reminder that behind the dazzling performances, there was a human being grappling with unimaginable challenges. Despite the secrecy, there were signs. Fans and friends noticed Freddie's changing appearance. His voice seemed different, and he became increasingly withdrawn from the public eye. But these observations were often dismissed as signs of stress or a change in lifestyle rather than the symptoms of a hidden battle. Now, let's return to that pivotal night at the 1990 BRIT Awards. Freddie was sharing the stage with his band, Queen, who were being honored for their contribution to British music. For any other performer, this would be a moment of triumph, a chance to bask in the adoration of fans and peers alike. But for Freddie, it was a tightrope walk between revealing his illness and protecting his privacy. When he did speak, his voice was weak, a far cry from the powerful vocals that had become his signature. And those 3 words, thank you, good night, echoed with a finality that only those who knew his secret could understand. It was a goodbye, a farewell that transcended the usual pleasantries of an awards show. In that moment, Freddie was saying goodbye to the career that had defined him, to the fans who had embraced him, and perhaps most importantly, to a part of himself that was disappearing with his health. In the aftermath of that night, Freddie retreated further into the shadows. He continued to create music, but it was mostly for his own solace. He didn't want the world to see him as sick or pitiable. He wanted to be remembered for his music, not his illness. And so he worked tirelessly on his final masterpiece, the album Innuendo, which would be released posthumously. The album was a mosaic of Freddie's inner world, a blend of opera, rock, and even a touch of Middle Eastern music. It was a reflection of his unique perspective, shaped by his experiences and fears, but also by his indomitable spirit. Through his music, Freddie found a way to communicate his emotions, to express the turmoil he couldn't vocalize. It was his diary come to life, each note and lyric, a testament to a life lived on his own terms. Today, as we look back at the life of this extraordinary man, we realize that his silence was not just a response to illness, but a deliberate choice to maintain control in a world that often sought to define him by his struggles. Freddie Mercury was more than his illness. He was an artist, a performer, a songwriter, and above all, a human being. And it's in that humanity, in his vulnerability and his quiet strength, that we find the true meaning of his final goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.